Good afternoon to you all, and welcome to another episode of Nutrition Hour. We are coming to you from the King's Medical Center at Bontanga in the Kumbungu district. This show is made possible through the support of the World Food Programme's project titled Nutrition in Retail Project, which is promoting the uptake of fortified and locally available nutritious foods in Ghana. Today, we are discussing a critical issue that affects millions of children around the world: malnutrition. We will delve into the causes, consequences, and potential solutions related to malnutrition. We have a nutritionist who understands the issues to give us her insights, experience, and knowledge to help us gain a deeper understanding of the issue. We will also discuss the long-term effects on a child's health, cognitive abilities, and overall potential. Before we begin, we will take a quick break, and when we are back, I introduce our guest for today. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Anna Mampofa Bebio, and I play the role of Ariana in your favorite TV series, YOLO. Do you want to take control of your sexual reproductive health and rights? Let me introduce you to the Agoshi Plus Helpline. Agoshi Plus offers information on education, sexual reproductive health and rights, and counseling. Even if you need a referral to a health facility, a specialist, or social justice institution, we've got you. Give us a call on our toll-free numbers 5100 on MTN and 0800 001122 on all networks. Call now and let's have that confidential, frank conversation. Good life, it's an everyday thing. Good life, live it well. YOLO, you only live once.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, today we are discussing malnutrition, a critical topic when it comes to child nutrition. With me today to discuss this topic is Madame Portia Manyaya, a nutritionist at the King's Medical Center. Welcome to Nutrition, Madame Portia.
Thank you.
Great. So today we are discussing malnutrition. If I may, what could you help us understand what malnutrition is?
So malnutrition is a broad thing to talk about. And when we say malnutrition, in simple terms, we are meaning the uptake of nutrients in lower levels as your body requires, or the body's inability to absorb these nutrients when they are ingested. So malnutrition can occur in anybody, adults, children, everybody. Your inability to process the nutrients or the inability to have adequate levels of these nutrients is malnutrition.
So you mentioned the body's inability to process food, but I don't know, could you help us fully understand that?
Yeah, sure. So I want to say that at every point in time, as an individual, you are one way or the other malnourished. People think malnutrition is just when we see you and you are too skinny than what they expect is malnutrition. But malnutrition goes beyond that. So, for example, you, Raphael, maybe you have eaten a whole bowl of meat and you are supposed to have had some amino acids from it, say proteins from it, and you lack something like magnesium. It's just a micronutrient which probably has a role to play in the metabolism, whether the breakdown of glucose, breakdown of fatty acids, breakdown of amino acids, whatsoever it is. And these micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals, are absent in your system or in your diet. The body will not be able to break them down because every nutrient has a role to play. So the fact that you've eaten doesn't mean your body will be able to absorb it. The scientists will tell you that a good number of the food we eat is absorbed in the small intestines. Someone might have an injury in the small intestines. Chances are that some food nutrients cannot be absorbed because of the malfunction of these parts of the GI tract. So the fact that you've eaten doesn't mean your body is able to pick it and to put it in good use.
Oh, so I would have said, okay, Arafat, I feel like I'm well nourished, but then you just burst my bubble.
I'm sure when we get to what types of malnutrition we have, you might probably consider yourself under a particular category. I will tell you.
Exactly. Exactly. So, following this, does this mean there are levels of malnutrition? If there are, what are they?
Yes, so when we come to malnutrition, okay, so let's assume malnutrition is at the top. We come down, we have overnutrition and undernutrition. When we come to overnutrition, we have where we have the overweight and obesity. Overweight and obesity, for me to be able to categorize our fat under there, I would have to know your weight and your height to see if you are overweight. So your weight and your height should correspond, or your weight and height should correspond with your age. Then when we come to undernutrition, we have where we can classify you as underweight or wasting, stunting, or sometimes hidden hunger. Hidden hunger is where you don't have the right micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. You know, in the part of the world where we belong, people think taking fruits, vegetables and the like is luxury. When someone sees you taking salad, oh, you are a rich man.
Yeah.
Or the only thing we see as food is banku and granules, so kind of the carbohydrates, the fats and the protein, forgetting that there's something called vitamins and minerals. So when you lack that, we can classify you under undernourished, which falls under the category of hidden hunger. Then when we come to underweight, it simply means your weight and your age does not correspond. And underweight can be used to classify children under 6 or adults. Then when we say wasting, it simply means that you have lost a whole lot of muscles. So that's where we see you like skinny, very skinny for your age. Sometimes you see children with very visible ribs and sagging buttocks, or the old man's face with regards to children. So you see, for example, I get underweight, and the way you know me, to have a bit of flesh on my arms, you begin to see a bit of my bones and my rib cave, and my face become very older. Probably my jaws are sagging, my buttocks is sagging. So these are some of the levels of malnutrition we have. So like I said, you saw yourself as well nourished. Maybe when we take your BMI, your body mass index, probably you'll be overweight.
I think that's something I would have to do after the show.
You pee.
If I'm up, if I'm allowed. So with undernutrition and overnutrition, which one is most common?
So among children, undernutrition is very common. Yes, even though there's unappreciable cases of overnutrition, but not as compared to undernutrition. So undernutrition still leads the most common form of malnutrition among children under 5.
So let's talk about children and nutrition. How does malnutrition affect child development?
So like I said, you see, the anatomist will tell you that everything is linked to everything else. Your head has a direct linkage to your hand, to your feet, and any other part of the body. Immediately one part of the body is not functioning, it directly affects the other parts. So for a child, we have a period called the window of opportunity. That's the first 1,000 days of a child's life. That is from conception to the first birthday of the child. Okay, so this particular time, we have the opportunity to correct everything. So when a woman conceives, we ask that the mother goes for A&C, that's antenatal care, to get some supplementation for the growth of the child. So for example, when a woman goes for A&C, they give them folate. Folate has a function in the cerebral development. So the brain and the spinal cord development is done in the first trimester. That's the first 3 months. So when folate is missing in this particular period of the window of opportunity, you get birth defects such as spinal bifida and the likes. Then when we move ahead, when the child is born and we are not able to do exclusive breastfeeding, if possible, the child tends to lose other nutrients, or is unable to have the adequate levels of some nutrients. You get. So the breast milk has all the necessary nutrients required for the baby to develop, such as iodine, iron, zinc, the same folate I mentioned, choline, vitamin B12. So when we move to the phase of complementary feeding, which is from 6 months to 2 years, 6 months we start complementary feeding, and this is where the trouble starts for a child. A child tends to learn how to eat other foods aside breast milk. Okay, and we encourage good hygiene, because the water you use to prepare the food, the bowl in which the child feeds, can all contribute to malnutrition. People do not know. Because if the child doesn't eat well and ingest dirt, the child is going to have diarrhea and vomiting. Then when diarrhea and vomiting sets in, we can count on fever coming with all its force, and before you realize, the child loses appetite and cannot eat even the little that you can provide. So malnutrition is having so many linkages with so many things that we do in our daily life. And for the child under 5, very, very serious attention is needed, because it has several consequences on the child's growth and every other thing that has to do with the child.
Wow, that's a lot. Let's talk the Ghanaian context.
Okay.
What are some of the common causes of malnutrition among children in Ghana?
So we've been talking about Ghanaian context all this while. So some of the causes are poor dietary diversity. So when I say poor dietary diversity is the ability of a person or an individual to eat food from the 5 food groups we have.
Okay.
The 4-star diet. So your inability to have variety, that's a word, variety of food on your table is food diversity, which we don't have in our setting, especially in northern Ghana. Then the other one I will blame is poverty. Then food frequency. To some extent, poor maternal and child health is also a cause of this malnutrition in our settings.
So specifically you blame poverty, but not entirely.
Yes.
Is there a special reason why it's not entirely poverty?
Yes, I don't know. People would argue with this, but from the experiences I've had, and people who know where I work, is a rural place, and we deal with rural people. Trust me, if you want the grains in any quantity, you won't get it in the city. You get it in the village. But these same villages are those people we term as poor. I feel poverty is in the state of the mind. They just feel that if you give a poor man $100 million, in the next couple of months, they are still going to be poor, because their mindset is poor. They just feel that riches or wealth is in having physical cash, but we are poor in raw materials. Okay, we are very rich in raw materials. So if I'm able to get grains, that same grains that I will use to make a nutritious meal for a child in the city is gotten from the villages. I don't want to blame poverty. Poverty is not the absence of money.
So is this to say people don't really know how to combine the foods that we have to achieve the 4-star meal that you mentioned, or they just don't want to?
I won't say poverty has no role. It does, but we have overhyped poverty. So to some extent, it has to do with lack of information. So I have soya beans, I have maize, I have rice, but I just feel that my child should take TZ morning, afternoon, evening with, for example, puka. Morning, afternoon, evening, every day of their life. Trust me, you are going to get very.
So you mentioned food frequency. Can you help us understand what food frequency is?
Food frequency, just like frequency, the number of times we eat. So some people nowadays we see on social media, someone say, I am doing 100. 010. You know that formula,
Yeah.
right? I eat in the morning, then the next day I eat.
Yeah.
Some of the children shouldn't do that. Children under 5, we shouldn't have that for them. This is the period where they are growing and they need frequency of food. A child might be able to eat maybe a handful of food per sitting. This is not enough, especially a child who is engaged in physical activity. When I say physical activity, not that the child has gone to the gym. The child is able to move from one point to the other. The child is able to lift the leg. That's physical activity for the child. And a handful of food will not be enough for the child. And from 6 months, there's a deficit in energy, there's a deficit in micronutrients. And when you give small amounts of food for a whole day, a period of 24 hours, 12 hours, it is not adequate for this child. So we want the frequency, the number of times you feed your child to be more. So I feed my child in the morning plus breast milk if the child is still breastfeeding. I'm supposed to feed again in the afternoon. I'm supposed to feed again in the evening. In between meals, I'm supposed to feed. So at least if your child under 5 doesn't eat in a day, the child should be able to eat 5 times. This includes snack. Your child eating 5-6 times in a day doesn't make the child indisciplined. Some people say, oh, you eat too much when you go to school. When is the child going to school?
Yeah.
If you don't start now for the child to have a very good cognitive, developed cognitive ability, the child will not even get to go to that school you are referring to.
Yeah.
So these children, they have to eat.
So, talking about school, what are some of the long-term effects of malnutrition on children?
First of all, it will retard growth. Malnutrition can retard your growth. You see a 10 years old child who is as tall as this. We know sometimes height is dependent on genetics, sometimes, but malnutrition can make you shorter. That's why we have a term in malnutrition called stunting. That's height for age. There's a standard height by WHO. They have used standard population to say if you are 10 years, you should be probably as this tall. If you are 2 years, you should probably be as tall as this. But if you are 10 and we look at you and say, okay, Ralph, guess the age of this child. And you say, oh, I think the child is about 4. And I say the child is 10 and you are shocked, there's a problem. So malnutrition can retard the growth of the child. And it can also have adverse effects on the cognitive ability of the child. So the child's attention, the ability of the child to pay attention, the ability of the child to understand things can be deteriorated by malnutrition. So I'm coming back to my big English. When we look at zinc, okay, zinc has a function on the cerebral function and structure of the human system. So if when we move back to a bit of our general science, you know that our brain and our spinal cord is somehow related. So when you get an injury in your spine, you might affect your brain. And when you get an injury in your brain, you might affect your spine. It's the same. So if zinc is absent, your ability to concentrate would be poor. Coming back to iron and then carbohydrates, do you know that when your system has about 100, let's say energy is in pieces, 100 pieces of energy, you've used it to about 20. The whole system is using it. When it gets to 20, the system will shut down with the usage of this particular 100 pieces of energy and push it to the brain. Because your brain needs to be alive. Your brain needs to work for you to be able to tell that my body is shaking out of hunger. But with malnutrition, you don't even have enough to be able to send signal to your brain. You're unable to pay attention. So when they carry you to school, they say 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, you write 2. I don't care if you believe it's 2. Write 2. You still say it is not 2. Your ability. So you see some children in class, they are supposed to be understanding simple things, yet they don't get. But they are fat. We look at them as well nourished. It's not about fatness. How many of these micronutrients, like the iron, like the zinc, the folate, the B12, the choline, how many of that do they have in their system to be able to process this particular thing you are saying in their brain.
Wow. So you mentioned stunting, right? You explained it, but then how serious is it in northern region?
Okay, so stunting in northern Ghana, praise the Lord, we have an updated version of the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey. So stunting is now 18.8%. I think so.
18.8%.
In northern region.
So for someone like me, I don't understand this statistics.
Okay.
So in a simple man's explanation.
Okay, so let me say when you put 5 children, you should get at least one. We don't have half human being, So say 1 to 2 children being stunted in northern region.
5.
If you put out 5, 1 to 2 children should be stunted. So we have 5 children.
No one.
Even one is disaster. Because malnutrition is a cycle, okay? It moves from one person to the other. So if I, Portia, am malnourished of any form of malnutrition, I conceive, okay, during the pregnancy, I am going to carry on with malnutrition. I can get low HB, I can get low weight. Remember that as everything is going low, I am sharing it with my child. I give birth to a low weight baby, then the cycle continues. The child grows into a malnourished adolescent, to a malnourished man or woman, also gets pregnant or makes someone pregnant. Then the cycle continues. So it's not like malnutrition ends with an individual. If not corrected, it continues. Then some people will say, oh, you dear, in the part of the country where I belong, we call malnutrition bikwara. They say, oh, for this man, dear, bikwara konko dwara, baby dharma koko dwara. You see, it's a cycle. And until it's broken, it will continue.
Wow. Malnutrition does not just affect one person or an individual. It's a continuous cycle. That is how serious it is. This is the Nutrition Hour. We go for a quick break, and when we are back, the discussion continues. Stay tuned.
Charlie, what's up? My name is Odenche. Some of you call me mini sharpshooter, but make I give you brotherly advice. For all your sexual reproductive health rights information, counseling and referral services, call the Agushi Plus helpline on toll-free numbers 5100 on MTN or 0800 001122 on all networks. Be assured of your confidentiality. Agushi Plus helpline, we there for you. Good life is an everyday thing. Good life, live it well. YOLO, you only live once. Peace out.
Welcome back. We are on Nutrition Hour, and today we are joined by Madam Portia Manyaya, a nutritionist at the King's Medical Center in Kumbungu. Today we are discussing malnutrition. Madam Portia, you mentioned a lot. We've looked at the issue of malnutrition among children, the effects of malnutrition on their cognitive development and growth as well. Now, can malnutrition be managed or cured?
Malnutrition can be managed and possibly be cured. Some malnutrition, I must state.
Okay.
So when we come to the undernutrition, okay, we have marasmic, we have kwashiorkor, we have marasmic kwashiorkor.
Marasmic
kwashiorkor.
What is the difference?
I'm coming. So marasmic kwashiorkor, then the combination of the two. So marasmic kwashiorkor. So these two can be managed, or can be corrected. Okay. So with marasmic, that's when we have very say in quotes lost muscles. The muscles are gone. There's no, we are not feeling the flesh on the bones. So you are wasted. My first time hearing it, I felt it was high. So harsh. How can you say an individual is wasted? So in this wasted nutrition terms, it refers to a very low weight. So you see a child This morning, someone called me that a child of 9 months is weighing 4.3 kg. That's too low. So such a child, in my mind, I have already processed the picture. So the child is going to have very loose skin, visible ribs, like I said, sagging buttocks, and the old man's face. When we come to kwashiorkor, kwashiorkor is also known as edema. So this time around, we have fluid accumulation in various parts of the body. So you see a child who has swollen feet, and the swollen feet, when you press, is pitting. Pitting, you see a hole when you press on the feet, or swollen limbs, upper limbs, or swollen face, very puffy face. To some extent, some of the children, their eyes get closed and they can't see as a result of edema.
It gets that bad.
Yes, those ones can be corrected. But when we talk about stunting at a particular age, after the window of opportunity, then I don't know if we can do anything about it. So stunting, to some extent, cannot be corrected. Your bones are developed. So your length, the anatomist says that at age 25, there's no way you can grow tall. So the child, even though there's not going to be significant addition in height. So when I was making reference to a 10-year-old child, probably as tall as this, maybe the only increment we can get is to this, or even to this. So imagine a 25-year-old woman as tall as this, and it's not genetic, it's just malnutrition. That's how bad it can be. So we can't really correct it for you to attain your maximum height that you were supposed to originally have.
So does that mean at this point there's nothing?
We can't do anything.
Nothing
We can't
at all.
stretch you. But until then, if we get a way to stretch people to grow tall, actually I want to be 5.5 feet, but 5.1. So when we get there, I think I'll be a beneficiary.
Well, I hope we get that. So,
Yeah.
at what particular age exactly can it be assumed, or can it be declared that there's nothing that can be done about this child's stunting issue?
So let me say maximum 5 years.
Maximum.
The window of opportunity, that name alone, opportunity comes but once. When you miss it, you might be missing for life. So the good news is the Ministry of Health has introduced something on our child records book. So when they come for CWC, that's a child welfare clinic, where we term as weighing, monthly growth monitoring session. When you come, when your child is 3 months, we take the length. 6 months, we take the length. 9 months, we take the length. 12 months, we just want to track the length to be sure that you are sound when it comes to length. If for anything we observe that your length at birth has not increased by the first 3 months, then we can engage the caregiver to see what level of nutrition they are providing for you. If there's a need to adjust to meet some requirements, then we can do that till before matters get worse.
So much said. So how do we prevent or address malnutrition?
The best way to prevent malnutrition is to send out accurate information on foods that we have to eat, like food diversity. We have to send information to these indigenous people whom we term as poor. If they know, I just told someone came here on Thursday, which is our CWC days. So she came opting to see me in particular. There were a couple of officers working here. She said she asked to see me myself. I said, okay, you talk to this other guy I'm working with, because I was attending someone. She insisted that she wanted to see me. Then after I gave her the audience to speak, she told me that a woman recommended that she speak to me because her child was ABCD. And when we met and I spoke with her, she agreed to do what I said. We moved from ABC to probably MNOP.
Wow.
So she really wants to talk to me. She was surprised I said she can actually mix rice and carrots and a bit of cooking oil or butter as pap porridge for the child. All she thought was complementary feeding in northern region. Most people standard molikoko.
Molikoko, yeah.
maybe the molikoko is sour and it had entered your jaws and you can feel it run through your head and your spine. You can feel it as a baby. You not take anything that is white.
Yeah.
So she didn't know that we can mix these things. So I just told her, play around food mixtures. You can even make the carrots into powder. So I was just teaching her food fortification in her own house.
Yeah.
They don't know this information. It's not poverty.
Yeah.
They don't have this information. They feel it's just teasers, morning, afternoon, evening, teasers with bra. Morning, afternoon, evening, teasers with this thing, bra. You see? So when we send out information on nutrition and make sure that there's a bit of behavioral change, I'm sure we'll make a whole lot of progress with regards to malnutrition.
So I remember when we were kids, they said there's this adage in Dagbani, Diongoranamde. So children are not supposed to eat meat, and there was this belief that children who eat meat eventually grow up to become thieves, right? So are there some cultural norms or beliefs that factor into malnutrition, like contributing to malnutrition?
Yes, just like what you said. Children in northern regions, some families think that they shouldn't eat meat, they shouldn't eat eggs, like anything that has to do with protein.
Yeah.
When you give animal protein to the child, when he or she grows up, eventually will become a thief. This is just a mindset. And also, some houses believe that when they cook a very fat chicken or house-grown local fowl, the part for the child is the head, and they'll pierce the thigh. I don't know if they know that. This part, like the shin of the fowl, into the head, and it will come out like X with the head in the middle. That's your part. Maybe if you are grown, they'll give you the wings, where the bones and little flesh is on. The flesh is for the father, and it's even the father who make the division. You pick where the flesh is, and give the bones to the mother to share among the children. That's a problem. That's a very big problem. Why should it be so? And when the child is not getting adequate nutrition and tends to be malnourished, for example, skinny or have edema, they will think it's spiritual something. In this part of Ghana, in this district, you'll be surprised to hear that most of our malnourished children are either seen as spiritually attacked children. So some of them, do you know what happened? They go for local treatment, make the matter worse before they run to the hospital. Some of them dump the children. But by the grace of God, through education, we've been able to at least contain the rate at which people dump malnourished children. Some time ago, we used to rescue these malnourished children from bushes because they feel, they are a source of bad luck. When you leave them in your houses, they will not survive, and then the whole family there will be disaster in the family. So they prefer to go and dump them or even kill them. But through the interventions of our activities in the district, we've been able to, help manage that situation. So the rates, for now, I can say we haven't rescued any child in the bush for some years now. But they believe that this thing has to do with some spirits or some punishments from God still exists.
Wow. So with this that you've mentioned, this is a huge challenge, right? Are there other challenges that affect your, how you address malnutrition issues in your facility, say in King's Medical Center or generally?
So, King's Medical Center, I would proudly say we are the only functional nutrition center with a rehabilitation center in the whole of the northern region. So in this place, we have the inpatient care where we have a separate ward for malnutrition children because we know that their immune systems are being compromised by this malnutrition. And if mixed with the normal sick children, they are going to pick up opportunistic infections. Opportunistic infections are infections that were not already here, but because they've seen a compromise here, they'll just walk in and dwell with us. So we make a separation for them. Then we give them the medical care. This is done by our doctors, our nurses, our lab technicians, pharmacists, everybody in the chain of health comes to see them with the nutrition officers. Then when the medical complication is resolved, then we can transition them into the rehabilitation center and subsequently catch up with their growth and reintegrate them into the community. And we do all these things for free.
Wow. Now this is most interesting. So all this is done for free. However, what are some of the challenges that you face handling malnutrition?
Of course, the resources to run the place. We actually rely on benevolent people, donations, such as you and your team. You can come and donate anything to us, food, whatever, toiletries. Yeah. So we do this because people give to us to be able to run the unit. So of course, sometimes inflation can affect what quantity of items we can purchase. So sometimes we can run out of stock and we have to put some things, small things together to be able to get some therapeutic feeds for the children. Some of the children come with severe dermatosis. When I say dermatosis, like the lesion of the skin. So some of them come and you realize that their skin looks like it's bent and it's as a result of edema. That's a form of malnutrition. It's as a result of that. So some of these children, we can need Savlon for them to bath. We can need antiseptic creams like pseudo cream, where we don't manufacture these things, so we have to buy. So it all boils down to the resources we need to run the place.
How do you think government and civil society organizations can work together to address malnutrition cases in Ghana?
Okay, so starting with government, I think government should equip health workers to be able to spread information on nutrition. Very accessible information, not to sit probably on national TVs where people don't even have lights to watch. So equip staff that can go to these interior places where we get high numbers of malnutrition from, to feed them with the adequate and good information on nutrition. And government should also equip facilities to be able to manage these malnutrition cases. Like I said, you didn't hear me say government supply us anything.
No.
So let's assume that people just sit back and say, okay, after all, government has a responsibility to do this and government is not doing it, so let's all sleep. They will die. So government has to equip these places with resources, logistics to work with, not more tapes and record books. I mean food to eat for these children. And when they come, we feed our children at the rehabilitation center, morning, afternoon, evening. Days we do snack like fruits for them. So if government is able to equip our nutrition centers, we used to have a nutrition center at Karaga. We used to have a nutrition center behind SD. I think that was the Tamale Nutrition Rehabilitation Center. All these places have closed down because of logistics. So government should equip us. As for civil servants or civil society, they should kindly come up with donations to support the government. The government might not be able to do it all, but as a social responsibility, they can come up and donate to these centers, starting from our beloved center. Yes, yeah. They should come and donate anything eatable and anything usable for children under 5. And I think we'll make a headway.
Not too soon, we've come to the end of today's discussion. This is the Nutrition Hour, and we have been discussing malnutrition among children. It has been a very educative and insightful discussion today. Like Madam Portia Manyaya rightfully mentioned, malnutrition is a very critical issue, and if we need to fight against it, then we need to collectively work together. This has been the Nutrition Hour. See you same time next week. Stay tuned.